Hello and welcome to this week's edition of What Matters. I hope you had a great week and I look forward to telling you all about this week's news. So let's start on Monday. Frank Lampard, the Chelsea manager, has been sacked after just 18 months in the job. With a squad of youngsters and last season finishing a respectable 7th place and spending over 200 million on players in the summer, expectations for the season were so high and Frank unfortunately hasn't delivered and therefore has been given the axe. He's the club's all-time leading goal scorer with 211 goals scored between 2001 and 2014. But Lampard's points per game average is the lowest of any Chelsea manager with 1.67 and a win rate of 52.4%, winning 28 out of his 57 Premier League games, lacking behind previous bosses such as Jose Mourinho with 67% when he started managing Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel has replaced Frank Lampard, a German coach who's managed teams such as Borussia Dortmund and PSG and becomes the 14th manager in 18 seasons to manage Chelsea. So let's see how he gets on. I mean, he got a win today, so that's a great start. Well, he got a draw and then a win, so that's not a bad start. Hasn't had a loss yet. On Tuesday, British Asian celebrities have united in a special video to abolish fake vaccine myths. Ramesh Ranganathan, Miral Sadal and cricketer Moeen Ali, and as well as the Mayor of London Sadiq Khan, have all taken part. The idea came from Citizen Khan creator Adil Ray. Last month, a poll conducted by the Royal Society of Public Health revealed only 57% of black, Asian and minority ethnic groups were happy to have the vaccine compared to 79% of white people. Many mosques are using their Friday sermons to urge people to come and have their jab. The government's also announced a £23 million funding scheme to create essentially what is their community champions. It's a network of people who spread accurate and informative information about the vaccine, especially to those who are more at-risk groups, to encourage them to come forward and have it. So fantastic work by those celebrities, really spreading the message and abolishing fake news. On Wednesday marked Holocaust Memorial Day. On the 27th of January, we honoured the 6 million Jews murdered and the 11 million others killed under the Nazi persecution. The theme this year was Be the Light in the Darkness. With the pandemic preventing people from being together, this year will be even tougher than normal. January was chosen as the month to commemorate the liberation of Auschwitz by the Red Army in 1945. Very tough time of year for everyone who's been affected by those horrible past events. But as we say, be the light in the darkness and celebrate it responsibly with family and home. And I saw some fantastic videos circulating online. So it's important we all remember the awful things that happened under the Hitler regime. So fantastic, they're still celebrating and remembering those who lost their lives. On Thursday, how can we support someone who's grieving? On the day that the UK surpassed 100,000 deaths, we asked ourselves, how can we support those who are suffering loss and who are grieving for someone? Amber Jeffrey set up the Grief Gang podcast after she lost her mum to COVID, and she encouraged us to do the following. Number 1, show up consistently. Number 2, listen more than you speak. Number 3, remember significant dates, whether it's birthdays, anniversaries or religious events. 4, remind them they aren't alone. Currently in the pandemic, we all feel so isolated, some more than others, so it's important to check up on each other and not to make people feel detached. Number 5, don't always expect to reply. It can be overwhelming replying to so many messages, so do give people space if they need it. And finally, don't give up on them. It may take some weeks and months for those to come round to finally talking about what's happened in their life. So please do be patient. And that's some fantastic advice, and that applies to anyone, not just who's lost someone because of COVID, but any sort of disastrous things that happen in people's lives. So I think it's always good to remember just those basic ways that we can support one another. On Friday, we all remember Dr. Alex from the 2018 Love Island. Bless him, didn't have a lot of success, but it doesn't matter because he's having a lot of success with the public now. Never did he imagine that he would be back doing his day job, working in A&E on the front line at Lewisham Hospital in London. I've added a link below to a great interview that he did with Newsbeat, which really summarises his experiences on the front line. I've included Alex this week. He's a prime example of a true influencer. We see many shipping out to Dubai, sort of constructing these fake idealistic lifestyles that a lot of us cannot obtain. But Alex is doing the greatest thing of all, which is serving the NHS and serving the public. And I feel like sort of influencers create these false perceptions for young people. And Tom Skinner, who was on The Apprentice last year, did a great video on IGTV on his Instagram account sort of explaining this. I thought it couldn't be more poignant and it was really important. So fantastic support from Alex, and he's a fantastic example of a true influencer. On Saturday, widespread protests by farmers in India over new laws that change the rules around sale, pricing and storage of their crops, which have protected India's farmers for decades. They now become vulnerable to exploitation by private companies after losing their guaranteed prices, which guarantee them breaking even or making a profit. Remarkably, agriculture employs half of India's 1.3 billion population, but only accounts for a barely sixth of their gross domestic product, their GDP. So obviously the government are still trying to change the way we use land use in India and trying to create more of a economic, more of a sustainable model for farmers. But it takes a lot of those who have been doing this for decades having these livelihoods taken away from them, unfortunately. So India needs to strike a balance there between protecting those livelihoods but also keeping that sort of cultural thing of managing the land going, because in India there's a big emphasis on these sort of manual labour jobs that have been carried down from family to family. So we'll see how the government manage that. And on Sunday, negotiations have started for the UK to join a free trade area with 11 Asia and Pacific nations. Countries such as New Zealand, Japan, Australia and Canada are part of this agreement. Joining this market opens the board up to 500 million people and will help reduce tariffs on specific products such as cars and whiskey by removing what's called a border tax between countries. So you can import items that maybe you can't create in the UK, for example, for a very minimal price. And same with us exporting. The trading group represents 13% of the global income, and the UK will still be able to strike deals elsewhere now we've left the European Union. So that's all the news for this week. And one final suggestion, I watched The Night Stalker on Netflix this week, and it's a fantastic 4-part documentary about the Los Angeles serial killer who was scaring many, many people in Los Angeles in about the 1980s and 70s. So would highly recommend watching. I think it's top on Netflix at the moment. It's one of the trending ones, so would definitely recommend. And that's all from this week's news summary. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next week.